lead us through a little PowerPoint presentation.
Great. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up so bright and early on a Saturday morning. Can everyone hear me okay? We good with sound? So, I want to just give you a little story. We start with story because we're about story. So, as Sam mentioned and I said in the intro the other day, I was a teacher for 20 years. And as part of teaching, we do something called differentiation. How many of you have heard of differentiation before? So there's some parents or teachers in the audience. I'm going to give you just the nutshell of what differentiation is. It means that when you get a class of third graders and one child like Daisy is a second language learner and is not even reading picture books yet, and somebody else like Hillary is reading 8th grade level or 3rd grade, you need to get them all to the North Star of doing a PowerPoint presentation about the solar system for their parents by the end of the year. So you have to work with all their strengths, get to know them, and kind of one of the core principles is knowledge of student. And you work with them, you work with their parents and all of the key players in that, and then you get them to the end point. So fast forward to me working in social media at Facebook with authors like Dan Brown and Jackie Collins and E.L. James. And it's not that different than working with children and having to learn all of the different ins and outs of every team and every author and how they work. And today I'd like you to frame this and kind of put on your differentiation thinking cap when you think of Twitter, or you think of Facebook, or you think of Instagram, or you think of video blogging. And I now work at Spreecast, which is a video platform. And I want you to imagine that you're in an amusement park, right? So in my analogy, I would think that Twitter is a little bit like the bumper cars to me, because you're kind of like, you keep retweeting and hitting up against the same people and going kind of back, and it's a shorter little live thing. And for me, Facebook is much more maybe like a roller coaster, and Instagram is the people that are taking the pictures when you're like, on the roller coaster. And some of the video chats might be more like It's a Small World, where there's a lot of multimedia incorporated, and you're going, wow, and oh, and there's kind of involvement in conversation. So just really differentiating when you're going on into social media, how you think about each community that you're building. And obviously for children's writers, and this is going to vary whether you're writing picture books, middle grade, or YA, you have to think about your audience. So I got this question a lot when I was working at Facebook, which is, what do I do when I'm writing for children and I'm trying to be on Facebook? Because kids under 13 in theory are not on Facebook. So who would you, can I get some hands, and who would you say you think you'd be marketing to? Parents, and who else? Librarians, teachers. So that's your core market, and you'd be amazed at the groups that exist on Facebook, right? So there's like librarians, in Canada, or like, there's all kinds of aspiring authors and writers. Authors and illustrators. There's agents groups. There's all kinds of groups on Facebook that you can join and become a part of, some of which let you promote your book, right? So one of the things to say just as a baseline for Facebook is kind of thinking, and I have this up here, like, what's the purpose of your post, right? Are you inviting people into your community? Are you inviting them to an event? Is it for your book launch? Is it for a writer's circle? Are you trying to inspire them? So how many of you know Paulo Coelho, the Alchemist author? If I say the book, you know the name. And he's the largest author on Facebook. I worked very closely with Paulo. He called me his Facebook fairy, because I would make things happen for him on the back end. And he does a lot of inspirational quotes. If you follow him, he's really good about inspirational quotes. So that's something you might want to think about. I know Mike Robbins does a lot of inspirational quotes. He just did his launch here a couple weeks ago. I was here for. Scott Stabile is another author, brand new self-published YA author, who's built up this amazing global community and is blogging for the Huffington Post. And he built that up from scratch. He started with nobody, and he's got like 12,000 fans now, people around the world that follow him. And to give you a sense, Paulo has like 19 million. So just like there is a difference, right? And then in terms of inviting, as I mentioned, you can invite them to a launch. A lot of people do that when you can create an event on Facebook. How many of you have created an event on Facebook before? So you actually invite people, you know who's coming to that event. You can also, like Sheila E. had a debut for her video the other day. She's an author also, and she debuted her video on Spreecast. So she had, this is not on Facebook, but she posted it, she cross-promoted to Facebook, and then she actually showed the video for the first time while she was doing her Spreecast. And people watched it along with her and commented and blogged and tweeted and all that. The other one is Ignite. So a lot of times there's people who are more political. You can ignite a campaign around something. You can ignite some community efforts around things. I don't know if you've all seen, but Michael Lewis currently is gathering, he's local, and he's an author who's a child on the team that he's coaching for baseball needs a bone marrow transplant. So he is putting that out. Michael Lewis is a very well-known Moneyball, do you all know what I'm talking about? So he's been putting that out, and so you're kind of igniting this campaign and really rallying people around a cause. The other one I don't have on there is Inform. So Ariana Huffington at the Huffington Post is somebody who does a lot of informing. Liz Gilbert does a lot of informing. And I want to mention that they do a really good balance of self-promoting their books at the same time as they're really like helping their community learn about the world. So I think those two things are a delicate balance. You don't want to seem too self-promotional. Alma Florada is another local author, bilingual author, who does a lot of informing about the world for her posts. So just want to take a minute to think about the difference between our traditional tour. What we think about, I did both of my book launches at BookPassage. They were wonderful. In 2012 for Mama Earth, I did a national tour that was wonderful, but it's very local and limited to where you are, right? So the kinds of things that social media offers are this interactive dialogue that you can have, a two-way dialogue, whether it's a Q&A. While I was at Facebook, I ran about 160 Q&As with about 160 authors. And you can have anyone from Dan Brown, who's got 2 million people tuning in, to a more debut author who has, a few hundred or a few thousand people tuning in. So that two-way dialogue where you get the readers get to ask you questions is really important, as well as asking the readers questions. So somebody like Jennifer Weiner sourced the name of her character from her Facebook community. She said, my editor and my agent don't like this character. She's a woman in her late 30s. She's Jewish. She lives in New York. Go. And like 37,000 people weighed in on what that character name would be. I had somebody else while I was working there that said, I'm doing a book about Singapore, and I don't know a lot about Singapore. Who's been to Singapore? So as you're writing, reach out to your community and ask them for input. Sort of the most obvious thing that I think about this, which is really interesting, is people always go like, we want it to be authentic and be in your voice in the first person. And I think, well, I don't know what to post every day. How many of you struggle with like, what do I post? Open your chapter, open your book. That is your voice. Post a couple lines of your voice. And just so you're aware, an image, so if it's an image of your computer, your coffee, those go really well, I don't know why, your pets goes do really well. If it's an image with some caption of 150 characters or less, it's about 60% more likely to get a like, comment, share, something like click. So the engagement is higher when you've got an image with an image with dialogue. Just going back to the community, so if you're YA, of course there are lots of YA readers on Facebook, but they're also really on Instagram. So definitely getting an Instagram account and using Instagram in tandem and linking your Instagram to your Facebook. And I want to back up a little bit and just the logistical thing of, should you have a page or a profile? How many of you have asked yourself that question? Should I have a page or a profile? The difference being, a page is where you like it, and a profile you have friends. So most of you probably have profiles on Facebook, but you want to have a page as a public figure, as an author. And that is where you build a community, and those people are not your cousins and your grandmother and your uncle and people like that. Those are people who are following you as an author. So that's something, you can have both, but you really need to have a page. So I have SusanKatz author, that's my page. That's where I post to, a couple thousand people that don't know me personally. Some of them are, have liked my page, they're my friends. And then I have a separate, profile that I post that I was with my nephews playing Foursquare yesterday. Right?
Is this all the same Facebook account, or is it two different?
No, it's the same account. You create a page. So if you're in your profile, you can just click on create a page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you
so
don't
it's
need
like
to create
a resume
it.
a little, or?
Not really a resume. I would say it's more just like a public-facing, who I am as an author, right? And if you look at some of the, like I mentioned, if you look at Paulo Coelho, or if you look at Daniel Steele or Jackie Collins, they all have pages. Isabel Allende, they all have pages. Yeah.
You know what, I'd
Yeah,
just
let's
like
hold,
to
yeah.
say, let's hold questions for
Okay.
later.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry.
So I think, just kind of, that's just an overall introduction. You can also do virtual visits through things like Spreecast, which is where I'm working now. So you don't have to go to a school. And a lot of us, our bread and butter is school visits. But you can actually do a virtual visit through social media. So I'm just going to give you like a quick sense of what it is. It's the idea here is that so much of what we're doing, if you see all these people, like at the airport, I was picking my parents up yesterday, like everyone standing outside was just looking down at their phone. And this idea around Spreecast is that we have so much that's just done in tweets and blogs and comments, and we don't have a lot of face-to-face interaction anymore. So Spreecast is a live video chat where you can have up to 4 people on camera at one time. And the mission is to really connect people face-to-face. And you can have an unlimited, it's like a Google Hangout a little bit, except you can have an unlimited number of people come on. So Marlo Thomas did her book launch for a day of It Ain't Over Yet, a Day of Reinvention. About a month ago, and she had 12 book launch parties around the country, and she had on herself and the women who were featured in her book. So those were the squares that you see, and you'll see that I'll actually show you in a second. And then we put in about 25 people over time asking questions live in real time. The beauty of it also is it's like platform agnostic. You can just like go on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or anything and log into it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a dialogue. You can debate things. There's all kinds of author discussions. You can do it during your book launch, like I said, a virtual visit. I'm going a little quickly because I know we have, in the interest of time, if you have a paperback release come out, so it doesn't have to be just when your book comes out. And then just kind of the Google Plus, I was saying it's a little similar like that, except there's more, you have to have a Google account and all that for Google Plus. Some of the authors that we've had on, Dan Harris and Ariana Huffington did a conversation together because their books were aligned. It's very interesting because they're different publishers. So Ariana is Simon & Schuster and Dan is Harper, and I knew them both, so I connected them, and both their books about like meditation and life-work balance. So they had this conversation together about their books on live video, and then we brought in people who wanted to ask questions to them. There's also characters, so if you have a character that's like, you can do a character screencast where the character gets interviewed, this Cookie Monster being interviewed. So a lot of people will have like, the fourth of indirect dog, or if you give a mouse a cookie. Some of the partners that we work with, and then you can make it private, so you could actually just have one school being able to see it. You don't have to have the whole world seeing it. You can sell your books, and you can also do a pay-per-view. So we met with some authors at BEA recently who were doing like a romance writers workshop, and you can charge for that as like a workshop, and then people come on. So I'm just going to give you a sense if we have sound.
What you're saying is that it's true, reinvention is not always by choice. What happens
That's
in our
Marlo's
lives,
chat with
losing a husband, being
Um,
laid off.
And then people, as you know, a lot of people access social media on mobile. So just think about that. A lot of people, you're looking at images on mobile. You want to make sure that it's very mobile friendly what you're doing. In this case, there's an app, and then you also can access it. But everything done on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, like 60% of people are on mobile and wake up every day and check their life on their phone. So think about that when you're framing it. And I'm not discouraging you from doing, like, Anne Lamott does great medium to long form content. Amazing. I would never want to stop her from doing that because we want to know what she has to say about the world. Liz Gilbert also does great medium. Nicholas Kristof does great medium to long form content. But generally, people have a very short attention span on their phones. And I'm seeing nodding. You all do too. We all do. I do. So you want a photo with some imagery. That's it. That's kind of the quick and dirty. So some of the children's authors I work with on Facebook that I just wanted to give you a sense. So Bruce Colville was at a school visit, and he's commenting about the library class pet in the school. I mean, it's a very endearing post. There's no kids in the post, but you know that Bruce went out and he presented. He's an amazing presenter, and you get his post in very short image with him with the pet with the post. Roald Dahl, obviously, Judy B. Jones. So these are some of the pages for authors. And then some other authors that do things that are not necessarily Q&As, but are really creative campaigns. Liz Gilbert had a sold-out event in London, and she allowed her Facebook community to give away that ticket. So someone who couldn't go, Genevieve, I think her name was, gave away that ticket. Marcus Dusak of The Book Thief, the movie was released last fall, and they did this hashtag steal this book. So how many of you have hashtagged before? Yes, good. So hashtag will allow things to trend. It gets people to be able to kind of interact with that content. So they did hashtag steal this book. They did a campaign around where they put an image of this is Grand Central Station. If you went there at 5 p.m., you could win free tickets to the movie, VIP seats. So you can do anything like meet the author, free copy of the signed book. You can do all kinds of cool campaigns. And then just on Instagram, I want to really emphasize, and I had to talk very adamantly to a lot of authors. On the far right, you see Margaret Atwood and Stephen King, neither of whom were on Instagram when I started. I got them on Instagram. And the point was just do what you're doing. Like, don't make something up and put it on Instagram. You're already going to these events. Take pictures of yourself here and put it on Instagram. You don't need to be, reinventing the wheel or posing or making an event for what you're doing. The middle author is a middle grade author at a picture book, actually. She's in my writers group. She's local San Francisco, and it's like her with her dog at her work branch where she writes. Great engagement, because it's just, I don't know why pets do so well, but pets do really, really well. And then E.L. James, who I got on Instagram, and she, of course, everyone's going to have their own voice. So she literally posted, in LA, no one can hear you scream, which has double entendre for E.L. James's community, and it's one line with an image, and she gets amazing engagement on her Instagram. I'm almost done. Some basic practice best practice is to be authentic and post in the first person. So the difference between posting, Dan Brown will be at the book passage at 2 p.m. versus I will be speaking at that's a huge difference. People want to feel like you're speaking to them, right? One thing I want to take everyone's, what we call an effective filter in education, like your inhibitions down. You don't have to have a social media team. Like, you can do it, and I'll tell you, even the top authors I work with, it's their son running their social media, it's their wife running their social media. I'm not kidding. Like, I have very few authors, even the big ones that I met, have people beyond themselves running their social media and their immediate family. So you can get a whole team, and if you do, get a very nice team, because you work with this team all the time. Another thing to think about, I talked about posting succinct sound bites. Cheryl Strait posted, "I have a crush on London," and someone posted back, "And London has a crush on you." That's like the kind of community engagement that you want. Mitch Albom did a countdown for his release. You can count down to when you're going to a writer's workshop. You can count down to anything. You can count down to getting a letter back from an editor. And then I cannot emphasize enough mixing photos, video, and quotes. Mix it up, because that is your best. I would pour your efforts into making sure it's as versatile and as in a very weird way as agile to the ADHD world that we live in these days. You really need to not just be posting the same thing all the time, because there's an algorithm on Facebook that will get you into people's feed more if you're mixing it up more. Like I said, dialogue of Q&As. I'm happy to talk to anyone more about Q&As and how that works online. And then optimize, try things out. One of the advantages to having a page is that you have data around what you've done. So there's measurement tools that show, did this work? How many people engage with this? And then you know whether it's working or not. And then just, again, I think you can, like in a video chat, you can do that so that people can ask you questions, they can engage with your content, they can see kind of, what your newest book is, but also be able to, as a person, ask you, so what motivates you to write, or, what was your character motivation, and ask those questions up front.